All right, we're coming off a 15-point victory at South Carolina on a night where Jabari Smith didn't have a very good game and Allen Flannigan was out with medical reasons. We still came out with a 15-point victory away in our first SEC conference game. Matt, what's your thoughts and who's your MVP?
First conference road game. I know that's what you meant, just to clarify for everybody. I feel great. A rule of the podcast is we're going to celebrate every road win this year, especially by double digits, especially when it was that, from wire to wire, beginning to end. MVP is clear. I think this is the easiest one we've had in a long time. Wendell Green Jr. Just really terrific. You mentioned he played 28 minutes according to the official stat sheet off the bench, which again shows you how meaningless starting and coming off the bench can be. But I thought he was terrific offensively in the first half, really gave a scoring boost off the bench like we've talked about. But not only that, he tied for the team lead at halftime in rebounds, in assists. I thought he played well defensively. He had a 2 or 3 minute stretch at the end of the first half where he got a little aggressive for my liking, but just his swagger, his energy, I thought on both ends he was terrific. And he really, by the end of the game, he was getting other people involved. He closed out the game well. All around, just another terrific game from him.
Yeah, definitely one of our easier MVPs. We've had a lot of games in a row now where we've had 2 or 3 guys that deserve to have recognition. And this one, Wendell Green definitely took it over at 14 points in the first half. I think you mentioned that already. This game looked super easy in the first half. We really answered the bell to start the game. We were texting back and forth, me and Matt, and a couple other people, just saying man, it looks easy out there. We're really doing it out there. Like we said, these away games are really tough. You can lose to anybody away. You can look really bad away. We started looking really strong. There was this gap in there where we had a 6-minute issue where we didn't score for 6 minutes, but Wendell kept it going in there. Jabari ended up hitting the shot that finally did the run stopper, but man, it took a lot longer tonight than usual to get that run stopper. But Wendell the whole night played great, not only from shooting. At one point he had 14 points in the first half, I believe, and only 1 3 in the first half. You would think if it's a Wendell night, it's like he's hot from 3 and he hit a couple logo threes. No, he was driving the ball really well. We talked about in SEC play, we were worried about these short guards and if they could drive the ball or not. And I think what we're learning so far, which we have a couple more games, I think, before we can really put our fists down and say what this is, because Zep has some really good drives. Wendell had some really good drives. KD did not have a great night, but I think Wendell and Zep can drive in the kind of as the game flow goes on, they can drive. Now you don't have them have the ability to drive when they really want to stop a drive. You need an Allen Flannigan for that. You need Jabari to step up on that kind of thing. But man, Wendell Green with those logo threes, really good passing, had some really good defense tonight. He calls a 5-second rule on their best player tonight, which was really amazing to watch. You get 5 seconds out of bounds sometimes. You get shot clocks. You don't get very many 5-second rules where the player's holding the ball and doesn't dribble for 5 seconds because your guy is so in his face and he can't go anywhere. That was really fun to watch. Wendell had another great pass right at the end of the game where he went really deep into the drive, wrapped it around, hurled it a foot away to Kessler for a dunk, which we saw several good passes to Kessler tonight, which was really fun. And Kessler caught that ball going 100 miles an hour and dunked it. And Wiley and a bunch of other guys would not have caught that ball. And it was really fun to see. So overall, good job, Wendell. It's really fun to watch that guy play right now.
Terrific. I'm glad we haven't really said his stats out loud. Totally. 22 points. He only was 1 of 5 from 3 the whole game. Like you said, he really showcased everything else he could do. 7 for 7 at the free throw line. Just terrific. 5 rebounds, 5 assists, only 2 turnovers for the amount of time he carried the ball. He was terrific. And I think when you have him and Zep Jasper, which we'll talk more about, Zep Jasper was the second leading scorer tonight with 13.
And I was going to say he might be the only other guy that could even challenge, which is crazy to have Wendell and Zep have 2 games at the same time. And I think Zep may be from South Carolina, or I heard somebody mention that he had a lot of fans in the stands or something. So I think he might have wanted to make a point, but he started the game really strong. Zep hit some all year long, really. Zep has hit some big open threes, and that's been really fun to watch. He doesn't seem to miss when it's open. Yeah. He doesn't take any risky ones. He's just very efficient. He had some good drives tonight too. And both him and Wendell had some really good defensive plays. Zep especially had 2 charges back to back, I think, that were really fun to watch. He was up in their faces. And there's a lot of push-offs tonight with arms on both teams, but a lot on South Carolina. Luckily, the refs called it after a while.
Well, that's playing South Carolina, right? We talked about in the SEC preview. I mean, it is going to challenge your manhood to play them in basketball, especially in their place. And I thought one of the bigger overarching themes for this game was that Auburn was plenty man enough for this challenge. They proved it. I think they started out South Carolina up 6-2. And then after that, Auburn just settled in. And the other big story arc to me was the bench. The bench was just 40 points out of the 81. Half the points came from guys off the bench tonight. Flannigan didn't play, I think, due to COVID. I think he had a positive COVID test. That hasn't been officially announced, but that seems like the case.
When Cambridge was out with COVID, did they announce COVID protocols, or did we just figure it out in the message?
No, he posted that he had it.
Okay, that's what it was.
I think they said medical reasons the other day too. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I meant to check.
That's good to hear, because I was worried that they used different terminology for Flannigan when he's had health issues. But that really sucks for Flannigan, man. If we want to get into that part, it just sucks. Yeah.
Let me make the bigger point first, and we'll come back to Flannigan. But to me, the story was Jabari was quiet. He got some garbage time points. He did not do much offensively. Kessler was quiet. He pretty much played off other guys and got open looks off passes. Flannigan didn't play. KD was 2 points, only shot 4 times. We'll talk about him later. The story of this game was Auburn's 5 through 11 guys just taking it to South Carolina. And there is not much better for a locker room than to have Chris Moore have some terrific plays. Cardwell was classic Cardwell with steals and breakaways, the red plays that we love so much. Leor finished the game again. He was on the finishing group because he plays defense and he makes the fundamental play down the stretch. It's awesome to see. We've talked about the depth over and over. We're going to keep doing it. This was just the biggest example to me of how good the depth can be.
Extremely impressive to win 15 points on the road. Rarely in doubt. The only time we were even worried was like a stretch where we didn't score for 6 minutes, where they, I think, got it back to maybe 9 points. That's when we were worried, when they got back to 9 points. That's like as good as it really felt all night. And yeah, you're right. Each one of these guys from the bench had a moment or two that was really great. Jalen Williams had a monster dunk on top of a guy. That was so fun to watch. He had his big moments. Chris Moore has a lot of hustle plays. Sonny, I got to listen to the radio call this time, which if it's worth the hassle, guys. We had Sonny on last podcast. Go listen to that podcast. It was amazing. It is worth the hassle to get the app out and time it right. All you have to do is time it at the beginning of each half, and you're pretty good after that. Worth it. Anyways, he talked about how good Chris Moore was and how if you hustle that hard and play that hard, good things are going to happen. And Chris Moore had 2 or 3 plays like that under the basket where he was just going as hard as he could, and the ball went up 2 or 3 times. He didn't know who was going to get it, but we got it most of the time. And that's because he was hustling so much harder than the other team. Cardwell, he was the hamburglar this game. KD still, even though he had a bad game, got in a good steal or two, but Cardwell had a steal, dribble all the way to the basket and dunk. And then I think the next play or the play after that, he did it again. He got a foul call. It was amazing to watch a guy that big do that. Berman had some decent plays. He really does stir the pot. It's interesting to watch Leor. Like, he's supposed to be a 3 guy. He's played really good from 3, and he doesn't drive that often, or he actually, let me tell you that he does drive off. He doesn't finish very often, but he stirs the pot a lot. He drives in there and then gets everybody moving around. It usually ends up with a score somewhere, even if it's not a direct handoff. It's really fun to see him just competently play basketball. You're right. Good defense, finished down the stretch. He missed a weird layup, but then later on in the game hit another layup that was good. You take that. I mean, the bench, what can you say? When you have a guy like Flannigan out and Jabari Smith playing that bad, KD playing that bad, and everybody else in this depth, like, easy 15-point victory on the road. It's crazy. Not a lot of teams can do that.
No, I mean, you just think about, again, the luxury of having 11 guys who can play. I think you broke the news to me that Flannigan was out, and I said, oh, well, Cambridge is back. He'll start. We'll go back to the same starting lineup we had. We still have 10 guys. Like, it's fine. And we'll get into more of kind of what happened throughout the game in terms of rotations and stuff. But I just think, and you said, you really don't want to have one guy out, per game with a COVID test, which it seems like that might be happening. But again, we are in so much better position to deal with that than our opponents in the league. And maybe some will. I haven't heard of any games canceled yet. Maybe a couple postponed. But But I just think we're in a really good spot to handle that and deal with that. So again,
I wonder,
terrific problem to put your junior Devin Cambridge in the starting lineup like he had for 10 games when you're, again, one of your best players isn't even playing.
you wonder if you're going to see less postponements now that I think Omicron surprised a lot of people with and they weren't using their same COVID protocols. I mean, we went through 2 years of this already, or at least one full basketball season of this, where they got through a whole season without very many postponements or issues or anything because they were having very strict COVID protocols. I think a lot of teams have probably started putting back in a lot of those same protocols and testing, or not testing at all in case of Kentucky. But I think people are taking it seriously again. I think you're going to see more one outs like Flannigan and Cambridge than you are going to see whole teams now. I think people are trying to avoid that. So,
well, let's dig into maybe just overall game flow before we get to more players. I mean, Auburn started out down 6-2, got off to, they pretty much had a double-digit lead really the whole game. I think it got down to 8 at one point in the second half. What were anything jump out to you in terms of how the game played out, stuff like that?
We were just playing good defense, and they're not that great on offense, and they kept missing threes and missing their layups, and we kept turning the ball over on them. We just kept consistently scoring each time. It didn't matter which player it was. A lot of times it was Wendell, which was great on the drives. He had some easy drives or at least ones he made look easy because he's such a threat from three that when he does that little hesitation, he goes right by people. And then Kessler can kind of block out for him even on offense, which is fun to watch, or he's waiting right there for the pass. So it was a bunch of different people doing it in the first half. When we're scoring just consistently every time we go down there and they can't seem to score every time, it just builds up like that.
Yeah.
We played great on the road. One interesting part was that South Carolina was number 11 in field goal percentage defense coming into this. And I said, it's going to be low scoring on our Instagram because that's just how it should be. I mean, LSU too is number 1 still, even after our game. We shot 51% from the field, 46% from three, which is surprising. We didn't really shoot that many threes, I felt like. And it's great. 81 points on the road against a team that's supposed to be number 11 in the country field goal percentage. That's just great.
With no Flannigan, and Jabari had 3 points with 5 minutes left. So, again, you just have to pinch yourself at how fun of a team this is. I was thinking about this during the game. Obviously 2 games into SEC play, we'll see what happens. But this team is infinitely more fun to watch during the season than that Final Four team was. That Final Four team was frustrating as hell. They would go down 20 and have to storm back. They weren't very consistent. They were small in a lot of ways. They kind of got pushed around sometimes. We've joked about the Monstars before. This is a fun team every night. The losses will come. I'm going to keep reverse jinxing that, saying we're going to lose. Maybe we just won't. But
still haven't done a loss podcast.
We haven't. We're undefeated in regulation still. We're just going to keep saying that. Anyway, I just think they're so fun to watch. So we've talked about it, but just enjoy every game. You made a great point. I thought one of the most telling things about this game, Auburn only shot 13 threes. And I think that was intentional. We destroyed them in points in the paint. We destroyed them off the bench. I think, Bruce, they obviously had a concerted plan to go to the basket. And I think it all started with Wendell and Zepp being able to break down the defense. And I think maybe they were focusing a little more on Jabari and on Walker, and some of the defensive attention for South Carolina was there. And we were able to get in the paint all day. And to me, that was one of the big differences. And again, I'll keep pointing out we won rebounding and turnovers, and that usually bodes well for this team.
You win rebounding, you win turnovers, you usually win the game. Probably, I don't know what I would love to see.
And you shoot better. Yeah. That helps too.
I'd love to see a stat on what percentage win. It's probably 80%. I bet teams that win the turnover battle and rebound battle win the game. I'd love to see the actual stat. You said we only shot 13 threes. We could have shot 2 less. Wendell had such a great night. He had a bad heat check 3. It's okay. I'm cool with him shooting the heat check 3 because sometimes those go in. The other bad ones, we were down, we hadn't scored in probably 4 or 5 minutes at that point. And we were trying to move it around a bit. And he just said, screw it, from another NBA range. It's no, I'm fine with him taking the long threes, just not when we're in a big funk like that. That's not the time to do it. We miss Flannigan on those. I was texting Matt this. Right now, we call them our run stoppers when the other team's on a run. Right now, our go-to run stopper is Jabari shooting a contested shot. And he does it, man. Even tonight, when we were 6 point or down 6 minutes without scoring a point, we still went to Jabari and he hit an extremely contested jumper. And that was the end of their run, which is amazing to have. But it would be real nice to also have Flannigan driving the ball on those. That's what you would traditionally want. If you told me I'll run without Jabari any other year, our run stopper is a contested three or a contested jump shot, not good. Not good at all. We need to be able to drive the ball with somebody when they want to stop us from driving the ball. We need Flannigan back to be as great as I think we can be. But how amazing is it? Like, we'll say it over and over again. 15 points on the road against a full squad, against a physical squad, and we made it look easy.
And again, South Carolina and Ole Miss are two teams that have just given Bruce and Auburn trouble over the years. It's never fun to play them. This was the most fun South Carolina Auburn game I've watched with Frank Martin and Bruce Pearl coaching. From the Auburn fan perspective, like, this was one of the few that you weren't live. There were still some terrible foul calls, but I thought we haven't talked about that. Walker and Jabari got a foul in the first 45 seconds, and Walker's was terrible. And you're kind of like, oh gosh, here we go. Walker played the rest of the first half with his rotations, didn't pick up another one. Jabari did get a second one that he should have stayed away from a guy on a fast break.
It still was a crap foul call. It was a breakaway from the other side, and Jabari was going right behind him the whole time, and he smartly stopped before he went up. And it kind of like, I think it almost, they just called it because he did psych out the other guy. I thought it was an extremely smart move that he got very close, like he was about to go up to do. Like, you could, a lot of times what they either do is they go up there and they challenge them, or they just stay completely away. Jabari kind of went in the middle, and not in a bad way. I thought he did it really smartly and stopped right before where I thought the foul would be, and the ref still blew the whistle. And you could argue that he like got into the spot where the guy would land, but I really don't feel like he did. And I really feel like the only reason they called it was because the guy missed. And he really, you can tell that Jabari doing what he did psyched him out. And the ref said, no, you can't like psych a guy out like that and like make it look. I could see a little bit how they would be like, we're trying to take that out of the game, like undercutting guys. He didn't undercut him, but he kind of like almost like fake undercutted him.
Yeah.
So,
well, first of all, that's a really hard call for a ref live. I think I love the effort by Jabari. Actually, Wendell got his rear end chewed by Bruce because he took a minute to complain. He thought it was a kickball rather than running back, and he would have wanted Wendell to take that foul if you're going to foul the guy going to the rim. Jabari also ran back, and then at the last second kind of, all right, I don't want to get my second foul, but then he just got close enough to give the ref an opportunity to call it. So even if it's a bad call, you have to
away in the SEC, you can't give the referee any chance to call something like that on you.
Right. Well, I have two concerns, only two out of the whole game, which for me is really low. I usually have way more concerns. And this will lead us into players maybe on the second one. The first one, 2 SEC games. We had, how many turnovers did we have last game? 20, 18? It was a lot for us. 20, 21 maybe, I don't know. This game, 17. We won the turnover battle. That's too many turnovers for a team with this much talent and skill. Part of that, South Carolina. We need to clean that up. But earlier in the year, we were single-digit turnovers most of the games we played. And if that continues, that's going to bite us. So I'm definitely my antennas are up about our team turnovers.
21 against LSU.
That's right. So 19 per game is ridiculous. Like last year's team that you felt really concerned every time probably averaged 16 or 18 turnovers a game, just to put that in perspective. So
slightly different kind of turnovers, but yeah,
it is. And like, yes, you're going to have turnovers. I mean, if you're new to basketball, like you're not going to have a clean game. Like Jabari tried to throw a pass to Chris Moore that would have been wide open. Chris decided to relocate closer to him at the same time, and it's just one of those miscommunications. Stuff like that happens. That's not what I'm talking about.
We have a lot more. Last year we had a lot of bad turnovers, bringing the ball up the court, for goodness sakes, and like some bad passes. A lot of our turnovers, it feels like, are off chaos plays, and we want the game to be chaotic, so we'll do that. We are missing a couple that we shouldn't, and KD is one of the guys that does that. He throws a ball to Kessler. It's a bad pass, which I'll take the risk, but he turns the ball over and immediately goes back and gets the turnover again. And KD does that, but that's kind of the chaos play you're allowing,
KD is like the stock market, right? He gets you back even. He'll go up and he'll go down. That happened a couple of times. He's my second concern, so we'll get to that. But I do think Jabari has room to grow. He is consistently turning the ball over, dribbling up, kind of when he gets rushed, not in the flow of the offense. And he'll get comfortable as the season goes on, but that's an area for him. He had 4 turnovers. Just to read Jabari's stat line for people who maybe didn't get to watch the game.
Is he the worst turnover guy on our team? Is he worse than KD? Because I really do feel like Jabari's had some bad turnovers.
No, not in my opinion. Big guys get turnovers. Like if somebody steals the ball from them when they're going to the bat, like it's deceptive. But
But that's not where he turns the ball over at, right? He turns it off of passes, doesn't he?
Usually it's passes and kind of just, I still think, as great as he is, it's still a huge step up to play the teams we're playing now. And I still think he's kind of getting settled, which should be scary for the league, by the way, if he's getting comfortable. But he had 10 points. He was 3 for 8 shooting, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 4 turnovers. I mean, that was his game. So extremely quiet. He won't do that again, probably the rest of the SEC season. But I just think he can get better at that.
You just don't want it to become a trend with him right now. I mean, the last LSU game was not one of his greatest games either. He had a casual game where he still had 16 points, 4 rebounds, but it wasn't like his best game we've seen him play. And I think the game before that even wasn't a great game, Murray State, where we had that like frantic 3 or 4 turnovers in a row that he calls 1 or 2 of them. So you're just hoping you need a player like this. He's been great already. He's been greater than any other guy we've had from a talent standpoint, and he's already an amazing guy on the team, but you want him to play like the number 1 pick in March, and you need him. Bruce is great at making guys peak at the right time. He's not peaking right now. He's going the other way, but only slightly. He's just going down just a little bit. You just don't want to keep going. So you hope next game we see him kind of have a comeback, because both me and Matt, I'm sure everyone in the fan base wants to see him have that game, that memorable game that we're going to look back on in several years when someone says, oh yeah, man, when Jabari was at Auburn, he was great. And you go, yeah, watch his highlights against Tennessee, or watch his highlights against Alabama when he went off for 25 and 10 rebounds and all, that's what we want to see. And he hasn't done that yet. And
it's coming.
Not trending that way yet, but
it's coming. It's coming. I think everybody
you also had a prediction that you said he would score more points, like average more points in the SEC than he did at a conference, right? He's not looking like that right now, but it's still possible.
Right now. But this was like the ugliest 10. If he got to 10 today, that was fortunate that he got to play the last 5 or 6 minutes of this game.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. My second concern, and this leads into KD Johnson. I do want to talk about KD. This is a KD podcast. As you know, if you followed us from the beginning, we got super hyped by the emergence of this Hamburglar guy who led us with energy and led us with toughness and kind of this not going to back down from anybody, even though he's not that tall kind of attitude. We've talked about the
most interesting player in Auburn basketball, even if he's not the best or the worst or whatever, he's the most interesting for sure.
Yes. And I don't know, I texted you this, but just curious your thoughts. I felt like he was early in the game. I thought he was calmer, and I didn't think he was going crazy. And I was like, oh, this is good. Maybe he's like, worked through some things, and the coaches have kind of worked with him on that. But then as the game went on, it got really weird. And again, I don't want to harp on him. We need him to do his thing to get this team to the ceiling that they have. But I try not to pay attention to this stuff. Okay, tell me if I'm being way overreact. Usually you're the guy who overreacts to things like this. So, but I think maybe my background in like basketball and just teams and coaching and stuff, he doesn't go high five the free throw shooter. He doesn't stand up when the rest of the bench is standing up celebrating another guy's 3. At least tonight. Now, he started at the end to cheer up a little bit. Bruce, I thought, was brilliant, put him back in the last minute. But he got in trouble. Bruce yelled at him pretty good, and Lior took his minutes down the stretch to finish that game. And I'm concerned. I hope he takes that well and uses it as motivation. And because Auburn, it seemed like he was lacking that KD vibe that we're used to. Did you feel like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a huge point. I will overreact to it. I think like we talked about in the last couple of games, it's fine that he's had these struggles after how amazing he played the games. The talent we see with him is great. The energy is great. We just worried about him having the right attitude, and that Bruce has so many talented guys on this team. He's been such a master of making everyone motivated and making everyone happy with the other team's success. Any one guy can throw that flow off, and we kind of were looking at K, and that's what you got to watch for these guys. Like KD it's fine. He has a bad night, but he's got to be up off the bench. He's got to be excited. He's got to feel like it's a good team. And you're right. It's worrying to see him not do that. And there was a shot during the game where KD, I don't know what he did exactly, but Bruce pulled him immediately and then got up in his face and was saying something to him. And he didn't play another minute until that last like 30 seconds when Wendell was cramping up and they had to throw somebody in there. And you're right. It might be a Bruce move to like get him in at the last second so that he's not pouting on the airplane back or whatever, but he pulled him for that long because something went wrong. And I'll be curious to hear if anybody comes out and says what it was.
Well, look, it's frustrating, I'm sure, for Bruce. There have been many times where he has refused to throw the ball where it's supposed to go. He's made game-winning shots in spite of what the coaches have said to do.
Which can almost contribute to a worse attitude, right? That why listen to, if he's already kind of guy that's not listening to coaches, and then it's working for him, but you know it's not going to work. How do you do that as a coach when it works when you tell him not to, and then you know it's not going to work in the future in this SEC play or whatever, and then when it starts happening, he's already built up this own ego in his head that he's going to do what he wants. It's going to take 10. You have to re-break him again, which has got to be so much more frustrating in conference play when you need to win, to like have to re-break this guy that you should have broke in practice a long time ago, you know?
Well, we saw him have a really good game against LSU. I think that was the blueprint. The good thing is he's not shooting a ton. He shot 4 times today. He was 1 for 4. No threes. He didn't settle for threes.
His 3-point shooting has just gone so far down. We talked about that at a conference. That was so good to see how high a percentage he was shooting, because when Flannigan came back, he might need to be a role guy that can make threes, like open threes. And it just feels like he has not made one in a while. And he doesn't take good ones either. He takes weird contested ones. I have not seen him shoot an open 3 in a long time. He made some really good passes today to start the game. I think that's part of what you're talking about with calmness. He had a couple drives where he used to look out of control, where he wrapped it around to Kessler or a couple different guys, and it was nice. Yep. But yeah, down the stretch, it just went haywire.
I don't want to take away. I mean, he made some good passes. He had a couple steals. He made up for a couple things he missed. He was being aggressive. Let's just hope that second half was kind of a weird aberration. And again, you know, he needs to process that. Lior can come in and make a fundamental play and close out a game and make the right pass to Kessler. Like, he can do that. Cambridge can do that, I think. Obviously Flannigan, when he's back, can do that. So like, those are the guys you're competing with for minutes, and that he need. And I think he will. If I had a concern, it's turnovers through 2 conference games, and it's KD's role. Can he be himself in a way that helps this team get where they want to go?
It's just weird how it's come together, that it took an amazing plays in that conference, and now we're back to like having to figure it out. If we'd started out with having to figure it out while showing glimpses, we'd be happy with him. And you know, if he was playing kind of the way he is right now in a game or 2 ago earlier in the season, we would have been like, well, you can tell he's got some talent in there, and then we've got some like energy in there, and that's good. You know, Flannigan will be back soon or whatever. But because he showed how great he was, now we're like, you should be able to do that. Stop doing dumb stuff.
But you know? I do want to say Bruce is the perfect coach to have in this situation. He's great at like massaging the egos and getting everybody on the same page. I think he'll handle it fine. And KD, by the way, seems really happy. He seems to love Auburn. So like, it's all good. That's how good of a game this was. I'm kind of nitpicking there. And by the way, I just want to pat myself on the back. Early in the season, everybody loved. I threw out the Dunbar comparison with a big caveat that he's a lot more explosive and better overall player. But now, do you see it? Do you see it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were both talking about, but you're right. You're the one that was first talking about when everybody thought he could do no wrong, that he had some tendencies that we're going to show later. Yeah. Let's talk about let me take you back to the first 5 games of the year. And we were watching Walker, and we weren't sure what he was going to do. And his 3-point shooting just wasn't good. And we can't get the ball to him. And now he's dropping a casual 12 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks. Yeah. And we're just like, we don't, how far away to the podcast, 15, 20 minutes podcast. Don't even bring up that he dropped another casual double-double after his triple-double the night before, because that's what he's doing. He's making it normal now, right?
I am shocked that he had a double-double. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. He did not miss a shot. He was 5 for 5. A lot of those were dunks. Maybe all of them. I'm trying to think. He was 2 for 2 at the free throw line. His 10 rebounds really snuck up on me. I think he had like 2 or 3 at halftime. And then he only ended up with the 1 foul that he got, which was a terrible call on the first possession of the game. 4 blocks. And I didn't think it just goes to show you, 4 blocks a game is like leading the nation almost. And he had 4 tonight. We're like, oh, Walker, okay, he had 4 blocks. But when you had 11 last game, I guess that's what happens.
Yeah, it was casual out there for him. I think it was all dunks the entire time. I can't think of a single shot he took. And that's what makes it look so casual sometimes with that 12 points, is when you can just kind of lay it off to a guy like that, and he can make it look so easy. He also does 2 free throws, which I said a couple games ago. He only shot 2, but when you shoot those two and you make your two, it changes the game from a 10-point, 10 rebound game, a 12-point to it just seems a little different. He got a little lucky on those free throws. Both of them bounced a little strange, but they went in. I think he deserves a couple more foul calls in there. I feel like because he's so big, he's not getting the foul calls he deserves really. And he's not going in there and like banging a ton. A lot of those were like wraparound dunks and things, but I do wonder if he was a slightly smaller guy or something, if he would get a little more of those foul calls.
You said it. I can't believe we didn't talk about him. And isn't it cool that he's getting so much national attention this week? He was SEC Player of the Week. He had attention from some national publications and stuff for how great his game was against LSU. It's truly amazing. I still am a little hesitant to buy it. And I think there will be nights like tonight where he kind of settles back into that fifth or sixth player for us, and that's okay. But he anchors our defense. There's so many times, Damian Fishback used that word on the telecast tonight. He anchors the defense so well. You can't even put like a point value on his presence on the floor. And anyway, I'm glad he's getting attention. I hope that he plays. If he's a double-double guy off conference play, look out.
They've had several. We wish you could count these as blocks. He's had some really cool blocks tonight that were barely by the fingertip that got him on that stat sheet. But he also had several other plays that caused air balls from like what should have been layups, what should have been little hook shots that were just air balls. And it's because they have to do so much, like they have to angle their ball so oddly to get over his hands at times. You wish you could count that on the stat sheet. He played 29 minutes, which is huge for a guy that big. You know, we've run a fast break and he's not like getting the ball like I think he should on a couple of them. There was again another player too where we were on a fast break that they could have handed it off to him, which would have been great. But just the fact that he can run that much for 29 minutes as a 7-footer is huge.
It's insane. He played more minutes than anybody tonight, and for him to be that
window was cramping up, and we got Walker Kessler at 7 foot just going back and forth and back and forth.
And like Cardwell was really good tonight. We can talk about him kind of in tandem. Like he played his role perfectly. And he got 11 minutes because Kessler's just that valuable on the floor. And if he's not in foul trouble, if he's not hurt, he's going to play 25 to 30 minutes a game. And he's a finishing big guy, which is the great thing. A lot of times big guys don't get to finish the game. Unless we're in a situation where they're intentionally fouling, then we'll put Jalen in at center. But other than that, Walker's on the floor to finish games. And he had a couple of great plays to help finish this one out in a much cleaner way. So he was terrific.
One of my pregame notes was who would get the ball in tough times. I didn't know if this game would be close or not. There was definitely a good chance it could have been close away, and who would get that ball when we needed the most. And Jabari ended up finally after 6 minutes getting that run stopper. But I do wonder, I would love to see us try to work the ball to Kessler at a time or two. After that triple-double, after another casual game like this, he's had several other good games. We're clearly without Flannigan. It's tough for us to get those physical drive-ins that we could get a foul call or something like that. We haven't yet, but I would love to see us work the ball. And you said you're not sure if you're going to buy in yet on Kessler doing this every game. He could go the other direction. He could go star mode. And we saw it with the triple-double last week. It wasn't just the blocks either. He had a really good offensive game with a three-pointer and a great jump shot. If we wanted to work the ball to him, we could. We're not really I don't feel like there's anybody on this team that we're really working the ball to. Sometimes we try to get Jabari down on the post. We're definitely not really trying to work it to any of the guards necessarily. Like I almost wish we would at times when things are going a little rough. Let's let Kessler, we haven't done it yet. I don't even know if that's a good play or not. Maybe they see it in practice and know that it's not great when there's like a bunch of people bunched up in there or something to have Kessler get the ball. But I think it'd be a good play. We're down. We haven't scored in 6 minutes. Let's work something down low.
Well, I think part of it is Walker is just so good coming off those screens and moving rather than like an isolated post up like Wiley, which we've talked about over the years. You know, that's just not a strength of Bruce's offense or really anybody's offense now. I just think Kessler gets his looks in the flow of the offense, and I think they just want to keep it there. But you're right, and I don't want him to dominate touches offensively because what we're doing right now is terrific. And I think he's having a better season than he probably anticipated in terms of his impact on the floor. And having him and Jabari, look, the chemistry on this team is really good for a bunch of guys who just started playing. We'll see how they handle adversity and losses and stuff. But like they look, and I think that makes things like KD stand out because Jabari and Walker are two of the most selfless, really good players I've seen in a long time. And it's really fun. And again, he did not go hunting anything tonight for himself, and he had 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks.
Right, that's a good term for it. He didn't go hunting. They didn't set him up for anything. They didn't work the ball to him. He didn't call for the ball hardly ever. He never took a 3-point shot. He passed the ball every time he was up there, and he still ended up with 12 points and 10 rebounds. It was just casual because they're working the ball with him in the flow of the game. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think you can do that. You can flow the game all day long with him, and then when you hit a struggle spot, go to him down low. I think the play right now is to get Jabari at like a jump shooting range, or even work him down low, like as a post up kind of thing. I wouldn't mind seeing it the other way around. We don't always have Jabari or Walker Kessler during that time. So maybe you go back and forth. If Kessler's the one in the game and Jabari's not, you work it to him. You can't see another 6 minutes of not scoring again like we did this game. That was not fun to watch.
No, it wasn't.
You can't have your point guard shooting an NBA 3 with like 10, 15 seconds left on the shot clock when that's happening.
Fair point. I agree with everything you said. I think you're going to continue to see that 1 or 2 3-point pick and pop a game from him. That's kind of one of the ways, one thing Bruce will call is a pick and pop for him to get an open 3. And they have thrown it into him a couple times, but it's going to be rare. I don't foresee that changing unless we have some attrition and the roster changes or something.
We have to. I think that's another point. Just watching this game where we're so casual with 12 points that we didn't have to do anything to him. He still scored 12 points. It still was a huge part of this game.
What about Cardwell? Wasn't it great to see him? You mentioned those steals, getting out on the fast break. He had a thundering dunk where he was talking smack to the 13 South Carolina students that were there watching that game.
For the people that didn't see it, he was using his hands, like talking like a puppet to the crowd, like early in the game. Like we were up like 8-6 maybe or something off of a dunk that he had just like stolen and took it all the way down. Both him and Kessler had better handles than you would think for their size, especially Kessler. Has a couple plays every game where he drives the ball or does something that I'm surprised he can do. And someone that doesn't have as good handles that I thinks has better handles is Jalen Williams. He gets in trouble at least twice a game, I think, on trying to dribble just a little bit longer than he should. He can drive the ball a little bit, but he tries to cross people over and like.
Stop your Jalen Williams slander. For a power forward that's not a generational NBA #1 pick potentially, he is a terrific ball handler.
He's all right.
Okay. Well, let's talk about him because Jabari got 2 fouls in the first half, I think with 13 minutes left. And he did play a few minutes later, but I thought Jalen got a lot of run. I did want to point out the group in the first half that really stretched out the lead. It wasn't who you think, kind of like we've hinted at. It was they played Zepp and Wendell a lot together in the backcourt. That was our most effective pair in this game. Played those two, Chris Moore, Jalen Williams, and it was probably Cardwell and Walker who played that stretch. That was the group that really won this game early. And I think it was really good for Jalen. He was 3 for 5. Again, he's not going to shoot a ton. He's not a very selfish player. 6 points, 2 rebounds, a thunderous dunk, which I'm thrilled he got. You mentioned that earlier.
He's got the ability. He's got the athletic ability, and I want him to bang down low a little more, and he has done recently. But honestly, he just hasn't played as much as I thought he would this year. He played a little more, I feel like, at the beginning of the year, and I got upset he was shooting some threes and not getting rebounds where I thought he should. He just hasn't been playing much because Jabari's been playing so well, but it's good to see him get physical. And I would love for him to do that again. Even if he gets blocked or gets fouled or charges, I would just want him to stay aggressive on that.
The underrated thing about that dunk, he's a lefty. He did that right-handed. If they didn't really catch that on the broadcast when I was listening. That was a sick dunk. But you're right. Not only is Jabari so good, I really think Bruce thought he was going to have to play Jalen at center more, and he's not because Walker's so good. Like right now, Jalen's kind of stuck. He's a great teammate. He's doing all the right things. Want to give him credit for that. But it was good to see him get some run in the really, to me, the most impactful part of the game in that first half. He was a big part of that, stretching out the lead.
Speaking of Stretch, does Stretch even travel right now?
Yes, he was there.
Okay.
He's there being a good teammate.
Like you said a bunch of times, you will probably need him eventually, but man, he's not playing anymore. Everybody else is playing so well. Kessler's playing so well. Cardwell's playing so well. Jalen's playing pretty good from where he's at. Stretch he's not going to see a lot of time this year.
Bruce wants 10. And again, you talk about a guy who I don't know what Bruce knew preseason, but I just don't know if anybody could have imagined Walker being this good this early in his Auburn career. And obviously the biggest, that hurts Cardwell, it hurts Jalen, it hurts Stretch. But I think those guys, with their stories and their backgrounds, they're doing a really good job of, helping the team. And you're there. I promise you, it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, but it's going to happen where Stretch has to play in SEC play. So get ready.
And I think Jalen's cool with knowing that Jabari is for sure one and done. And Jalen, if he believes he's really a great player, he's going to get a full year next year and is fine with it. Cardwell is just happy to be on the team and playing as well as he is. He'll be fine next year. The next year after that, depending on what Walker does. We can talk about some pregame notes right now if you want to. I actually forgot to save mine, but I think I remember most of mine. We'll start with yours. Can this year's team match South Carolina's physicality?
Yeah, they answered the bell. They brought the physical play. I thought it's a great sign of a team. It's a great sign when a team can match styles. Like, think about that LSU game. It was physical in a different way. It was an up-tempo physical. It was almost like a football game in a lot of ways. This South Carolina is different. It's a different style of game. And for us to be able to beat both of those teams by double digits within the same week in different styles with different guys out, just says a lot. It says a lot about them in my mind.
You were talking about the LSU game. Let me ask you two things about LSU. Do you think their defense is legit, as they're number one right now in field goal percentage defense? Do you think after playing LSU, they're legit? And where do you put LSU quickly in the SEC?
I think they're very legit. I don't know about number one. I think that'll balance out as they play harder teams. But to me, they were better. I think they were better defensively than South Carolina, and that says something.
And where do you put LSU in the SEC?
Let me check the LSU Kentucky.
No, don't do it. That's what I was going to get you on. They just took down
they beat Kentucky.
LSU took down Kentucky. I was going to see if you would say, oh, they're not legit. They're 4th, 5th, 6th, or whatever. And I was going to say, well, they just took down Kentucky. So that's something you'll see, that LSU beat Kentucky. And that's great for us to see that we dismantled LSU. And Kentucky is so talented. They're always going to get talked about how talented they are. Oh my God, so talented. And that's part of the thing. Talk about this team with, after a casual game like this, missing Flannigan, bad Jabari night. I really feel like we're just setting ourselves up as like, no, we are the best team in this league, and it's not close. Maybe there's there's good teams we're going to get beat, but I think we are squarely putting our feet in the ground saying, we're the king of the hill. You have to come get us.
There's nobody that we should fear playing. Let's put it that way. You still have to play Alabama twice. You still have to play Kentucky. You still have to play Tennessee. But getting that LSU win was so big. And by the way, LSU was at home. They beat Kentucky. So Bruce would tell you.
Held Kentucky to 60, though, which is still, that's another reason I asked about the defense, because that's really something, because we scored 70 points on them?
70, I think. So, look, I think LSU is legit. I think they're a top 5, top 6 team in the league. I would have said that before. I think they're really good. I don't want people to downplay that win. People came away from that game last week against LSU being super impressed with both teams, but especially Auburn to handle it the way they did. And we got a lot
of love nationally after that. We went from people that no one was talking about, it was irritating that we couldn't jump into the top 10, to a lot of people saying, are they dark horse Final Four? Do you have them in your Final Four? Hey, they might be Final Four. I like a lot of Final Four talk from national guys after that.
And they were they finally broke the top 10, which is comical, but number 6 in the net rankings coming in before this win. Auburn is, and Bruce even acknowledged it, which is why I love him as a coach. We've talked about, he's so honest. He gives you the straight truth. He said, you can't ask for a better position than we're in going into SEC play. Right at this point in the season, this is all you could ask for with a brand new group of guys. You're in the top 10. You have a chance to be a high seed, which is always the goal in the tournament, to give yourself the best chance possible. They're in a great spot. They just have to keep getting better and stay healthy. And I do think the SEC is going to be a grind, but it's great. If Auburn can beat Florida at home this weekend and get 3-0, and they will be either tied with Alabama and maybe Tennessee. No, Tennessee lost. They'll be up at the top of the league playing at Alabama next week, regardless. Maybe Alabama loses, who knows? But if they could get a lead, and we talked about the schedule being advantageous for Auburn in the SEC in some ways, it would be huge. If Auburn could somehow beat Florida and beat Alabama on the road, they will be the clear favorite.
It won't be just clear favorite in the SEC. If we can keep winning all the way through Alabama, we're going to be getting like top 5 love, I think, at that point. Away at Alabama like that, after Alabama's getting love for beating a Tennessee team that was down 2 players at home. Your other one. This one doesn't really qualify very well now. If Cambridge is back and everyone is healthy, how does Bruce manage the rotations at 2 and 3?
It ended up being fascinating because Flannigan's out. Cambridge jumps back into the lineup. And then Chris Moore, we mentioned him briefly. I'm the president of the Zep Jasper and Chris Moore fan club. Chris Moore showed exactly why he's on this team, why he's a scholarship player, why he's an impactful player, offensive rebounding, toughness, putbacks, defense, hustle. It was South Carolina is Chris Moore's game, and it was so good to see him he got those minutes from Flannigan. Leor didn't come in until later in the first half. That was Chris Moore's minutes, and I think that says a lot about Bruce knew that was a good matchup for him, and he played really well.
Matt says I overreact about everything, and I do to an extent. Chris Moore posted on his Instagram like a game or two ago that he's trying to stay humble, but he could be a beast. And you're like, I don't know. I just look into those kind of things because we are so worried about how great this team can be that I'm almost more worried than I am with a team that I think is just good, because I want everything to work out so well. I just don't want a person like Chris Moore to get upset. And he's not the kind of guy that would get upset, but you do have to read into this stuff sometimes. And so you're like trying to stay humble, could be a beast, let me play, whatever. He had his moment tonight, and that's good. And I hope he doesn't hope he takes that as like, see, I'm getting to do my thing and not, I could be doing more. Yeah.
5 points and 4 rebounds. That's no joke. I mean, that's 20 and 16 in a 40-minute per 40 stretch there. He was very productive when he was on the floor.
You hope he in his mind is setting himself up for next year, but I know players don't think that way anymore. The last one you had is, can Auburn cut down on the unforced turnovers against another team who will apply pressure?
No, I thought it was a little disappointing in some ways. I'm glad that our defense was so impactful on them that it made us win the turnover battle. But like I said, I'm still concerned about we just need to cut down 3 to 5 of those turnovers a game that are just careless or just a lack of execution. You're going to have 10 or 12, 8, 10. That's fine. We don't need to be having 12 plus turnovers with this team. This team's too good, in my opinion, to be turning the ball over that much.
My notes, if I can remember them correctly, were, can we stay out of foul trouble and finish through contact on a very physical team? And we did. It was really worrying at the first couple minutes or two when Jabari got 2 and Walker got that one bad one. Said, oh no, we're setting up for one of those nights where our best players are in foul trouble and it's physical and they just hit a bunch of threes or something. But we really just drew it back from there. We did fine. My next one was, can we shoot 3 away? We've had so many years where we just cannot seem to shoot away, and we shot great. 46% from 3 is amazing, really. We just, maybe that's part of the strategy with a team like this, with how talented and athletic we are and long we are, is Bruce is like, screw trying to shoot great from 3 all the time like we did in some of the past teams. Let's just drive the ball and score. And then when you're doing that early, you got open 3s to shoot, so it might be part of the strategy to just say we're going to shoot less 3s away.
I'll disagree with you there. I think it was a strategy for South Carolina. I think it was the way they wanted to match the downhill physicality of South Carolina. I haven't seen a Bruce Pearl team shoot only 13 threes. I'd have to go back. That's a alarmingly low number. It was great tonight, but I still think the identity of this team is going to be what we've gotten used to.
Yeah, and the last one I think it was who would get the ball in tough situations if this game's close or if we can't score. I think that's fascinating with the amount of players we have. We've already talked through Jabari doing that. I think that's what we went to. We could have Walker do that. Wendell thinks he can do that, which he's done very well, but I think he's a much better player in the flow of the game kind of thing, and it's not as good when it's like, we're going to stop your guy kind of play. It's just small.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because Auburn's 13-1 now.
Undefeated in regulation.
I'm trying to remember. I'm going through the schedule right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can follow along. I guess St. Louis. I'm trying to think of when we've been close in the last 3 minutes, and it's really just the UConn game and the St. Louis game, right?
Yeah, my friends Ben and Willie, shout out. Anybody that wants a shout out on this podcast, just text me and say you want a shout out. It's not that big of a deal. But Ben and Willie, they were talking about this team hasn't been through a lot of adversity. And I was like, I have, but what are you going to do when you're this talented and you go on the road against South Carolina and make it look that easy when you have a ranked matchup against LSU at home and you beat them by 15 points or more? I can't remember what we beat them by, but those are the challenges to do that. You're not going to manufacture close games when you're just playing that well. So, but it is, you do want to if you're trying to like put a season together at the end and you want your team to have like check marked a certain amount of situations, you can't manufacture close game winning shots, kind of stuff like that, but you do need them at the end of the year. You don't want to be the kind of team like you see it a decent amount in sports where they go like a sport like the NFL or even a basketball where a team goes undefeated all the way to the title game and then loses the title game because they've not been in some of those situations before. So
yeah, I mean, the adversity will find you. Just enjoy not having it. It is, I think the reason this team's been fun for me as a fan in a lot of ways is that it hasn't been stressful last minute. The UConn game was really the only one that was, and St. Louis was bad. People, I had forgotten how ugly that one was for a while and how we had to storm back. But so they've responded when they've needed to. I think we both agreed the UConn response was terrific. They went down double digits in the first half of that game and just punched back. But who was the guy making all those plays in the UConn game? It was KD Johnson. Yeah. So, and Jabari.
Who was in the St. Louis game? Who, like, if you could pick, I guess it's been a little bit since that game. I don't know if there was like one guy that was like making the plays. Kessler had some really good plays down the stretch.
I remember Lior Berman had to finish the game with the last 7 minutes. I remember that. I don't
get that big three. So Jabari played. He had a big, I think I would say Kessler. Now that I remember, he had some really good stuff down the stretch when we were down. So it could be anybody. It could be anybody any night, guys, because we have a team that deep.
Yeah,
I mean, we still haven't seen Flannigan do it, and I think that was the guy. If I was going to pick a guy in this team, even up until a couple games ago, he's still going to be the guy that when we need tough points, we're going to go to him, and when things are frantic, he's the guy that's going to slow down the game and get a good shot. And we're missing that a little bit right now, and we're still playing this great. If Flannigan wasn't coming back at all, I think we'd still be getting a lot of top 10 love.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's barely been on the floor. I think we saw enough in the LSU game from him, though. I feel comfortable. If he has COVID and he's, has hopefully a minor case and he recovers and he's back in a game or two, I have no concerns with his game. Maybe he won't be an all SEC 18-point a game scorer on this team just because we have so many options. But I feel great about what I saw from him in those 2 games back. So I think he's in a good spot. It's kind of a shame for him, maybe good for Auburn in a way. Maybe this means we get another year out of Flannigan. If the year kind of keeps going this way, we'll see.
Did Frank Martin lose his hair from COVID? Yeah.
Not from COVID.
I think, according to reporter Michael Lana, Martin says he started losing his hair after positive COVID-19 test in May. And then he decided to shave it. That's what I'm seeing. I remember hearing that story that because he looks so different now. He had a full head of hair, maybe not like a thick head of hair, but he had it during his Final Four run and all that.
I guess so.
And yeah, I had another friend that lost a lot of her hair because of COVID-19, which is crazy. It's just this disease is so crazy. Wow. Anything can happen. Wow. So hopefully, Flannigan's got some nice hair. We can hope he doesn't lose his hair.
Yes, I agree.
A thing with that is little thing is CDC changed their requirements to 5-day quarantine. You can agree with that or not agree with that. But if you're a competitive sports basketball guy, I guarantee I don't know when he tested positive, but it's based off of symptoms, this quarantine. So I guarantee we're going to say Flannigan had symptoms on Monday. So he'll be ready to play by Saturday unless he actually is very sick and has issues. Yeah. I was hoping we could look down the schedule here because Matt has a very special game coming up against Florida where he will be in Auburn Arena. And we haven't decided. We're going to figure something out to do. I don't know if I'm going to, with Omicron, I don't know if I'm going to make it to a game the way I was hoping I could this year. But Matt's going to make it to this game, and we're going to have to do something to engage with the fans. So if you have an idea or something, let us know. But I think we're going to figure something out to do where you can meet Matt, or Matt will record something, or we'll hand out donuts to the fans in line or something.
We'll be getting some special content for sure. I'm pumped. My mom got me and my dad a trip to Auburn to go to a game, and I ended up getting really good tickets. Shout out to people who helped me with that. I'm not going to reveal my sources.
Sonny said at the end of the call for you to go see him.
I know.
After the game. So Matt's going to go see our I can't call him a fan, our number one friend of the podcast, Sonny Smith.
I'm so excited. I'm excited to go with my dad. My dad hadn't been to a Bruce Pearl basketball game. He's really pumped. And so that I didn't think I would make it to Auburn Arena, honestly. So I'm really happy about that. I'm excited to maybe meet Sonny Smith. If you haven't listened to that interview, it was awesome. We had a great time with him. He was really generous with his time and his stories.
And that interview is evergreen. we did talk about the current team, but we talked about it very high level, and we talked a lot of good history stuff that you really should check out. So if we ever have a game that gets canceled, God forbid, or you're just looking for something to itch that at Auburn basketball, go back and listen to that Sonny episode. He's really a treat.
It's great. And yeah, if anybody's there, it's a Saturday night game. Would love to meet anybody. Our numbers continue to just be great. We're really honestly probably surprised and humbled that so many people, especially our LSU episode, just kind of shot out there. Like a ton of y'all listen to that. So thank you for that. Hope you're enjoying it. I think we do kind of a unique look at Auburn basketball from a fan perspective, but I do think we're somewhat informed on what we're talking about. We've watched this style, this team for a long time. And anyway, all that to say, if you're going to be there, my Instagram is Matt Donaldson AU. You can look me up. You can hit me up there, or you can reach out to the Jungle page, and Jackson will get me hooked up with you. I'll be there most of Saturday and maybe into Sunday morning in Auburn. So feel free to reach out.
If you meet Matt Donaldson on campus or at the game or anything, guaranteed shout out in the podcast. Guaranteed. You can say that at the very least. Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, to quote Charles. Yes, so looking forward to that. I can't wait. And I do think I'm going to be in Knoxville and maybe Athens as well. So again.
And I not to talk about another sport, but I heard there's a guy named Caleb Williams that follows us on the Jungle podcast that might be at the game. There, look it up. There's a guy named Caleb Williams that follows us on the Jungle podcast. And I bet you he'll be there. And I don't know if there'll be anybody else named Caleb Williams there, but there's our podcast follower will be there. Shout out to Caleb on.
Shout out. I bet Caleb Williams is feeling really good about his name right now. That's cool.
For the big game, so you got Florida coming out, which is it's unranked. We could definitely lose that game, but the atmosphere is going to be great. I think we're going to get a lot of love in that game. I think that'll be one of our best atmospheres. That LSU game was amazing, but I think this one's going to be even on top of that. It really feels like almost like a magic, like people are really understanding how great of a team we have and are jumping onto it. But then after that, the Jungle is going to take over Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
A week from tonight, late night for you East Coast people like Jackson, 9 Eastern tip-off. That game, I don't even know who Alabama's. You want to look up real quick who Alabama plays between now and then. So Florida at home, at Alabama, at Ole Miss are the next 3. And we've talked about how Ole Miss's style, kind of like South Carolina, has given Auburn trouble. So this is kind of a dangerous 3-game stretch here. But Auburn has the game at home against Florida. You really want to get that one against Florida because you're about to go on the road for the next 2. And Alabama is obviously a very good team. So got to be ready for that.
I'll tell you what Alabama's been doing. They had these great wins against Gonzaga and Houston, but then they dropped against Memphis. They had a close one against Jackson State at home, lost to Davidson at home. Then they played Tennessee without their best 2 players because of COVID. Had a really tight game. I thought Tennessee might pull it out there in a little bit, but they still jumped up to number 15. So they're going to be a top 15 team unless they lose. I guess either way, the AP's already out. So they'll be a top 15 team. No, they'll get a ranked again next Sunday. They're playing Florida tomorrow, then Missouri, then us. And so they'll be playing at Florida. They could definitely lose that one. They have not been playing well at all. But I guarantee they will play their best game against us. I guarantee all these players that were not shooting threes well are going to be hitting every 3 against us in Coleman Coliseum. So we're going to have to play our best game of the year to pull out a win in there. I guarantee it.
I totally agree. That's going to be the big test. If Auburn can beat Florida on Saturday, that game is going to be massive regardless, but that game will be biggest
one ever in the series of Iron Bowl basketball.
You'd have to go back and look, but I mean,
in the SEC, we won in 1985 with Sonny Smith. We beat Alabama in the SEC tournament championship game. So that's huge. But I wonder regular season if we win the last time or ever we've had a top 10 Auburn or top 10 and top 15 matchup like that.
Well, and I was just looking, it very well could fall that Auburn, Alabama are the last 2 teams without a loss in the SEC already by next week.
I hope they lose to Florida here at Florida. I think they're playing, so they're really not playing well. And if they can beat I know Florida's not so great this year, but if they can win at Florida, I'm going to have to like reverse a little bit that they're going to be looking a lot better. I think like the way they're playing now, I fully expect them to lose
I think you're barning a little too hard here. I think
they lost to
Alabama's really
Davidson
good.
And they played a bad game with JSU and lost to a bad Memphis team. Barely beat a team that had their best two players up, and Tennessee's not been that great this year.
Tennessee is a top 10, top 15 net team. Like they're really good. I know you hate
without Fulkerson and Chandler.
Doesn't matter. We hate to admit it, but Tennessee and Alabama are good. It stinks that they care like we do now, but it just is what it is. That is going to be a tough game. I always like to keep track of the betting lines because I think it gives you an idea of kind of how teams are interpreted. Auburn was only favored to win by 9 tonight. And that was before Flannigan was out. Gives you a sign of how much respect people give going on the road in conference play in college basketball. Purdue lost to Wisconsin the other night. Purdue may have the best team in the Big Ten in a long time. They're really good. I guess Baylor's still undefeated, but it's tough. So I'll be really curious if Auburn and Alabama win their games before that. I'm really curious to see who's favored in that game. I think it would probably be maybe Auburn by a point or something. It would be almost a pick 'em.
These away games are really hard to win. That's why I think it's funny that you don't think that at Florida that Florida's going to win that game. I think they should be favored at this point. Alabama's not playing that well.
Nah. I think
I don't know what Florida. I don't know what Florida's up to these days. They're not ranked. I don't think they're playing particularly.
I mean,
good.
Look, Alabama. You beat Gonzaga, you beat Houston. You're good. Or you can be good. I don't think they're
you lose to Iona, you lose to Davidson, you lose to Memphis. Are they good?
That's a normal schedule for most SEC teams, though. Like what we're doing right now is kind of special in a different way. Like, we almost lost to St. Louis. UConn, I don't know if they're ranked anymore. Lost to them. I don't know. I'm not going to. Go ahead.
You have Saturday's SEC basketball games pulled up. We talked about LSU. I want to talk about SEC real quick, but we just saw the LSU beat Kentucky 65-60 at LSU. That kind of is great for us to see that LSU is legit when they went undefeated before they played us, but they'd not played really good people. And so you were kind of afraid maybe we beat the mess out of them and then they lose 2 or 3 in a row because they're not as good as we thought they were, like a paper tiger situation. But for them to beat Kentucky, who no matter what Kentucky does, there's going to be national guys pumping them up, that they're always on the cusp of being great or whatever. So still good. They beat that. That makes us look good. It gets interesting. The further the games get in, the more we'll know who to root for sure. But I knew to root for that one just because I wanted to see that we were legit because LSU can beat Kentucky.
Yeah, great to see Kentucky lose early. Great that we only played them once this year. Great that we only play LSU once and we already beat them. Saturday, you mentioned Alabama plays at Florida, then at Missouri, which you mentioned, but they're back-to-back road games. So they'll be coming home for our game after that. But that's 3 games that's a Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, 3-game stretch for Alabama. That's not the most fun.
They're playing a Thursday and they're not playing tomorrow. They're playing Thursday.
Maybe it's tomorrow. Maybe it's Wednesday. But 3 games in a week. That's an interesting. And then you've got Tennessee LSU is the big game. We talked about how terrible LSU's schedule is to start. They play Tennessee on Saturday at home. So another game where either one of them is going to lose, which is good for us.
Arkansas should be playing right now, right? I'm curious to see if
they're up 5 on Vanderbilt at halftime right now.
Scottie Pippen Jr. is pretty good at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's not been very good this year, so that's interesting to see. I think Texas A&M beat the mess out of Georgia away, so that's good. I like Georgia just to completely stay down.
They won by 2. They won by 2 at
Texas A&M did?
Yep.
Wow, Wow. Okay, that's surprising. They were down. They were up like 15 or 10 at one point. I saw.
I don't think A&M's great, but again, they go kind of take care of business. Georgia's, I think, the one team, maybe Vanderbilt. Georgia's the one team you really don't want to lose to and give ground. I think a lot of the middle tier SEC teams are going to beat up on each other and be kind of even. You just don't want to lose to Georgia and give away a game like that because most of the other teams you're competing with are going to beat them.
Well, it was a great win tonight. We stretched out this one a little more. We talked about at one point doing 30-minute episodes on these weeknight games, but we're too good, man. It's too much fun to talk about. I have more work I have to get done at 9:45 tonight, but it's too much fun. This is what, with COVID and everything, me and my girlfriend have been very staying in and trying to stay safe and everything. I look forward to this. This is what I'm looking forward to. I don't get to go to the bars right now or do New Year's Eve parties. So Auburn basketball, keep winning because I need it right now and it's fun.
Absolutely, man. It's always fun. Again, 2 15-point wins to start SEC play. 1 on the road, 1 at home, 1 against a top half team. Great start, 13-1. You're getting all the national recognition. At this point, Bruce just has to keep these guys getting better, take one game at a time. And I continue to be impressed with their maturity. They approach every game like it's important. They really have all year. And that's a testament to the coaches and these guys for kind of digging in. Nothing is easy for the other teams that Auburn's playing this year.
Stay engaged with the Instagram. We're going to come up with something interesting for Matt to do. At the very least, we're going to post where he's at some point during the game, so you can go say hey to him. It's the Jungle Auburn podcast on Instagram. Easy to find. Lots of good content on there. Made a cool reel about Sonny Smith last week. So stay engaged. And
I did want to say, we already talked about Sonny Smith, which was awesome. Listen to that. Sonny's great. We were both on Cloud 9 just because we think it's cool we got to interview him. The other thing I would say, if you're on Twitter, if you're a member of Auburn Twitter, Jackson is not on Twitter because he's a weirdo. I am. I don't tweet much, but I watch all the memes. My favorite thing to do, actually, Jackson, when I'm uploading this file to get it up for the podcast, that's when I go look at all the memes. So I can't wait to go look at what y'all did to for South Carolina Twitter account after this win tonight. And if you're part of that, I'm also on Twitter as well. If you want to connect with me, Matt Donaldson AU, same handle. So if you're on Twitter, not Instagram,
hit us up if you know the history of the Auburn basketball memes. If you feel strong about that, if you're interacting with all that, we'd love to have somebody on to just, even if it's a brief podcast, to hear how this all started, what the best memes are. I can tell you after interviewing Sonny Smith that Sonny Smith now knows about the Auburn memes, and someone has made some Sonny Smith ones and he knows about them because his daughter told him about it. Shout out to Sherry. And we're all having a great time, man. It's something special out there.
Let's keep it up, and we'll talk to everybody after the Florida game.
All right, War Eagle, Matt.
War Eagle.